Hello class, this is the first video that you guys are going to be watching this year for lecture. It's a very different process than what you guys might be used to, but it's also very similar. You'll still be taking notes, you'll still be writing down learning goals, and instead of learning with me up in front of the class in front of everyone, you're going to be learning from a video like this. Okay. Please take notes on procedures, things that we do inside the lecture, definitions that I point out that are important, and examples. Alright, so let's get started right away. Our learning goal for the day is I can convert a multiplication problem to a division problem by inverting a multiplicand and turning it into the divisor. So, please write that down at the top under learning goals. Now recall from previous years, when we're multiplying fractions, what we need to do is multiply the numerators together and then multiply the denominators together. So we have an expression here, 1/6 times 3/8. So the numerators are 1 and 3. So in order to get the answer to this question, what we need to do is multiply the numerators, which is 1 and 3, and the denominators, which are 6 and 8. Now before we do this, we should do something called simplification. We take a look at the numbers that are in the numerator and the numbers in the denominator. And we see that both 3 and 6 have a common factor. That common factor is 3. Both of them have a factor of 3. So we can say that 3 goes into 3 once, so we can change this into a 1. We can say that 3 goes into 6 twice, so we can change that into a 2. So now what we have is 1 times 1 for the numerators, which gets us 1. And then 2 times 8, which gets us 16. So we have a final answer of 1/16. So all we have to do is simplify by finding common factors between numbers in the numerator and in the denominator, and then multiplying across. Now it's your turn to try. Take a look at this expression, 3/4 times 2/9, and try to simplify first and then multiply across to get your final answer. Pause the video at this point and try this problem out on your own. When you try this problem out, what you end up finding is that we can simplify the 3 and the 9. Because both of them have a factor of 3, we can change this into a 1 and change this into a 3 over here, because 3 goes into 9 3 times. We can do the same with the 2 and the 4. They both have a factor of 2, so we cross this 2 out because 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 4 twice. Now we multiply across. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6. With a final answer of 1/6. Now, division of fractions is very similar, but with a few added steps. Instead of just multiplying across with the numerators and the denominators, what we need to first do is flip the numerator and the denominator of the divisor. That's the second fraction inside the expression. Then we have to change the division sign into a multiplication sign. And then we can finally multiply across. We're going to do this with this expression. We have 4/5 divided by 1/3. Our first step, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite 4/5. That is the first fraction, which is the dividend. We leave that as it is. Then we're going to flip the divisor, which is 1/3. So the flip of that, we're going to flip the numerator and the denominator, is 3 over 1. The second step says we need to change the sign into a multiplication sign. We change it into a multiplication sign. Finally, we can multiply across. 4 and 1 don't have any common factors besides 1, and 5 and 3 don't have any common factors besides 1, so we can't simplify. So we just multiply across. We have 4 times 3, which is 12, over 5 times 1, which is 5. So our final answer as a mixed fraction is going to be 2 and 2/5. We can see the answer to this expression demonstrated inside the picture right here. We have a picture over here of 4/5 of a bar. 4/5 of the bar is filled in red. Down here we have a bar that has been split into thirds. This is 1/3, this is another third, and these 5 boxes right here make up another third. We can see that when we fill up 2/3 of the entire bar, it doesn't quite reach the same amount as 4/5 of a bar. So what we do with the last bar is we split it up into 5 equal parts. We see if we fill up 2 of these equal parts, 2 of the 5, we get to exactly the same amount as 4/5. So we're asking how many 1/3 bars would it take to get filled up to the same amount as 4/5. Well, we see we have 1 and 2, so we definitely have 2. But we don't quite have the full 1/3 at the end part over, if I can get my mouse over there, over here. So instead we say we have 2/5 of a third bar. Now this multiplication rule leads us to the fact that a over b, so any fraction divided by another fraction, c over d, will be the same thing as the first fraction multiplied by the inverse, which is the flip of the second fraction. Inverse, E-N-V-E-R-S-E. This is an important definition, the inverse. C over d is the inverse of d over c. When you flip the numerator and the denominator, you find the inverse of a certain fraction. So I want you to try that process with this expression. We have 2/3 divided by 4/5. At this point, please pause the video and try this problem out on your own. What you should get for an answer is 5/6. As you can see, what I did was I kept first fraction, changed the division sign to a multiplication sign, and then flipped the divisor to get 5/4. Then I simplified. 2 and 4 both have a factor of 2s, in which 2 goes into 2 once, and 2 goes into 4 twice. After which I multiplied across. So 1 times 5 equals 5, and 3 times 2 equals 6. Be always looking for ways that you can simplify after you have changed the problem into a multiplication problem.